Hey guys, Thyworm here with some criticism from a solo self-found perspective on the League mechanic, and particularly the crafting mechanic with all the corpses. I'm diving right in. Let me quickly give you a summary of this crafting mechanic in the Necropolis League. Every time you enter a zone or map, you will find certain monsters that are anguished. They have a grey cloud around them, and when you slay them, they drop their corpses, which can be collected by Arimor, the new NPC. Arimor puts those corpses in the morgue. You can then bury those corpses in the cemetery, and Arimor can then play a bit of the exorcist, shouting and all, to craft using those corpses. It's a 10 out of 10 design if you ask me, at least on paper, right? It all makes perfect sense in the setting of the game. There's a logical flow to it all. It is very intuitive. It only takes a few minutes and a few tries to figure out the basics, and then you're off to the races. Or so you think. In reality, we are like Jon Snow. We know nothing. Except for Grimro, but we'll get to that. There's a stark contrast between how easy the concept of this league is to understand versus how easy the inner workings are to understand, or how easy it is to actually make this mechanic work. And that is my issue. You see, a good design for me would be that even though I wouldn't really know too much about the league, I can at least slap some corpses together and get something somewhat decent, right? Without going any further, without writing any more lines of this script, I feel it's reasonable to ask that if I put together around 20 corpses, like I am in this clip, and a guy starts shouting for 20 seconds, that at least something usable comes out of it. But it is absolute, total, utter garbage. I find better gear randomly picking shit up from the ground, and that's not good. And herein lies the issue. Without listening to the game devs on a podcast, without watching Grimro, without using an Excel spreadsheet and at least one third-party website for crafting mods, and without knowing the inner breakpoints of this crafting system, which are explained exactly nowhere within the video game, you can't even make something I would wear on day one. And that is as garbage as this league mechanic is at the moment. I know Path of Exile is a game that greatly rewards game knowledge, which is what I love about it. But the current league mechanic just overcomplicates things. It's convoluted for no reason, and it doesn't have to be this way. Let me give you 3 examples of previous and still existing league mechanics that are complex, but also are usable without extensive game knowledge. Starting with the original Harvest. Part of the reason why Harvest was so fun when it was in that league, despite having to build your own farm and whatnot, was that the crafts were very intuitive. You could block modifiers, add this stuff, reroll that stuff. It was self-explanatory, and using the mechanic without any additional knowledge, you could make gear for yourself you would actually wear. And then more knowledge resulted in ultimately mirror tier gear, as it should. But at its core, the game mechanic was understandable for basically anyone that interacted with it. Second example, Betrayal as a league mechanic. Likely one of the more daunting ones to fully grasp, knowing where to put which NPC in which safe house, etc. It is hard, but you don't need to have any of that knowledge. You can just at random execute people, get their field loot and feel it, and very often, especially in solo self-found, these are pieces that already are very decent. You can create basic gear that works for your character by simply interacting with the league mechanic, as it should be. You make your way through Katarina, kill her as well, that's some more loot, it all makes sense. And then for the min-maxers, you learn which NPCs are optimal in which safe houses and so on. It works for beginners, and it is still worth it for seasoned pros. Last example, Crucible League. Another league with quite convoluted crafting, which was hard to understand, but one thing was not, and those were the recombinators. Using those, you could slam 2 pieces of gear together and it would inherit modifiers from both pieces. Fun to use, made a lot of sense, very intuitive and easy to understand. Sure, there's RNG involved, but I'm not complaining about that, right? It's just that you can actually make an item that works. You see what I'm getting at, right? I feel league mechanics should have a baseline utility, like in the 3 examples I just gave, and then more knowledge gets rewarded by creating better and better gear. But at least without all of that knowledge, the crafting still works and is fun to do. None of this is the case, seemingly, in a new league. I can't make a decent item for the life of me. Because without knowing weighted scaling in Craft of Exile, a third-party webpage, I don't understand how this works. I know in theory now how, because now I watched Grimrose's video, but I shouldn't have to watch a video of 22 minutes, which is a summary of another video of 1.5 hours with a dev and Zizaran, in order to even create a basic item that could benefit my character. And so for now, I've just resorted to skipping all of this and farm the unique families for now for their rewards in the hopes that GGG will fix this, which they will likely. I'm having a blast with the league, otherwise I'll be making more content soon. Thanks for watching, see you all later, goodbye.